And now I'm here teaching to you guys, and I want to speak on faith, yet I don't want it to be another message on faith. I was like, how can I go about doing that? And I prayed about it, and God kept bringing me back to Journey of Faith. I talked to Vince about faith and everything about it, just to get some ideas of how to go about this. And Journey of Faith kept popping up in my mind. My dad talked about Hub of Faith. It still had to do with Journey of Faith. And so then God's like, well, you should probably share your story. I mean, nobody knows you, really, here at Impact. You're still new, so if they know your story, then they're not going to think that you're just another person in the group, and they'll actually know who you are. I was like, that might be a little tough. But then God was showing me Hebrews 11 when I talked with Tyler about what I was going to do. And I was like, wow, that really goes along with my story, or just with my life. I was like, all right, I could do that. And then he showed me ways to grow in our faith in God. And the first thing that comes to mind is Peter. He walks out on water to God. And I was always taught that he was a failure at it, that he failed. He started sinking because he took his eyes off God. But when I studied that, probably about a year ago, God showed me that he didn't really fail, that he had more faith in the spirit that they saw, that he actually took the step of faith out there to even see if it was God. And everybody else was on the boat like, oh, no, I'm not going out there. There's a storm. And I remembered also that one of the pastors in Indiana said that when you're going through a storm and you're asking God to calm the storm and he may not be, it's probably because he's trying to calm you. And I was like, wow, that's really good. And then we were at a life group one night, and we were talking about comfort zone. And I'm pretty sure it was John Comm that came up with this. And he called it the lazy zone. I was like, well, that's another good one. I was like, how many times have I been so lazy on trying to move for God that I stay in my comfort zone because it's easy? I mean, nobody said being a Christian is going to be easy. It's definitely going to have its hard times. It's going to be easy sometimes. But for the most part, it's going to have its problems. Because it still doesn't make us perfect. We're still going to sin. And we just have to trust him completely in everything. We have to pretty much sacrifice everything that we want for what he wants. Take our will for his will. And that's what I had to do when I decided to stay here, which he did provide me a good job, which is actually paying for my schooling, which is nice. And even then at the job, like, I work for an electrical company, and one day, stupid me decided to believe what my supervisor told me. He said the wires were not hot. He turned the circuit off. I was like, all right. I had my tester with me, but I was like, I'm not going to use it. He told me it was off. And went to grab the wires to wire them together, and it definitely was hot. But that's just, I mean, I know that was a mistake on that one. But at the same time, if God tells us to do something, we still have to have faith in him. It may shock us, but it's not in a bad way. I mean, because God will use something small for something big. And that's what I'm trying to get at, is that he will use something small to start something huge. It's like going to a camp meeting. Everybody's fired up for God on just one message. But then, like, 2 weeks later, everybody's back to normal. And it's just like, where's the faith in that? Like, I mean, I went to church camp, and that's what happened to me. I was like, yeah, I'm fired up for God. 2 weeks later, it's like, back to the old ways. We need to keep our focus on him, too, in our journey of faith. That's the only way to grow, is to keep our eyes on him. Even though the storm may seem so big, it's really not. God is there. He's never left us. And he's going to bring us through it. and he always has. If you look back in your lives and see where you came from and where you are now, it's a big change. I know that's what I saw in my life, and it made me stop complaining so much. And then my parents, they still want to go to Indiana. Like, they want to move back even though they've been here for 3 years. My dad loves snow, so Indiana's perfect for that. And I felt bothered by it because they were pretty much complaining about going back to not being in Indiana. And I was about to say something, but then we went to church, and they talked about love and stopped complaining. And I was like, wow, that was cool. And one night I remember my dad was praying for the food, and he said, help me not to complain so much about being here in Florida. And like, it made me fall backwards. I was like, wow. It's like, that's what I was getting ready to tell him. But again, we have to remember where we came from. If we don't remember that, we can't grow. Because God is making doors open for us when we don't even see it. It may be the smallest thing that you're going through, or maybe even the hugest thing that you've ever even imagined could happen. But yet God's hand is still in it, and it's for His glory. We need to stop complaining about everything that we're going through and just be thankful for what we have. And acknowledging all He has done, that will grow our faith. But also, as my dad talked about the hub of faith, it gives us peace, love, joy. Our worship will grow. And what I mean by worship is that we will worship Him more as a one-on-one relationship rather than just as another church body. That's good to worship as a body, but at the same time, we need to have that personal time with Him as well. And another way to have faith in God is experiencing God in all He has to offer and pursuing Him and understanding Him. And that's all I have.